had to suffer to change, because if it would have been a smooth transition, I wouldn't have learned any lessons. I've learned a lot from failure. I've not learned a lot from success, and I failed a lot.
If you would, just take me a little bit through your backstory and kind of how you got to be where you are right now.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. So I was born in Havana, Cuba, communist country, very poor. There's a very, it's funny, or not funny, but in a socialist country like that, communist country, you would think, oh, then everybody's even. Well, no, the government people, a few of them, Castro family and all them, at their top 1%, everybody else is poor. And so we grew up very poor. I remember we'd get 2 gifts a year, 2 toys a year, and there wasn't always food or enough food, and it's bad. 1980, as a kid, I got on a boat and with my family, my parents and my brother and me, the 4 of us, and another 140 something people on a boat with which you would look at it and say capacity is probably 70, 75. It was 150 of us. And we spent 12 hours on that boat. 4 of those hours were a crazy storm, scariest moment of my life. Till this day, my biggest fear is the ocean. I've battled it. I've scuba dived. I'm going snorkeling next month. I do things, but it's very scary for me because of that traumatic experience. Grew up pretty poor right outside of Oakland, California. Got here to Key West on that boat and immediately went to California and grew up there. And always wanted. I wanted new shoes. I wanted toys. I wanted this. Clothes that weren't hand-me-downs. And so that desire to get ahead was always there. And I learned what I didn't know the word, but I learned what entrepreneurial adventures were. And I started that at 10 years old. I started buying some trading cards. They were called garbage pail kid cards. And I started trading those and making money off of them, and enough to buy snacks. And one day in 4th grade, I bought Omega Supreme. It was a Transformer toy. It cost like $50. It was the biggest Transformer toy, and I felt like a champion because I bought it myself with my own money. And so I've been an entrepreneur since then. I did have jobs. I always had like a full-time job right out of high school, and then worked side businesses, and one step at a time. The way I started really making money was going to garage sales. And by the way, it's easy to say it now and go, oh yeah, you go to garage sales, you make a lot of money. Yeah, right. It's, 1 out of a million. Maybe I just got lucky, but I went to a lot of garage sales, and I found a guy selling underwear, brand new in the package. Turns out he was a sales rep for the Jockey brand, and these were his leftover samples for the 6-month period. I bought them all for $1 each. I talked them down from $3, and I took them to the flea market and I sold them all for $6. So $500 turned into $3,000. And at the time I was making $8 an hour working in radio. And I go, wow, this is way better if I could just get more. So the guy called me every 6 months and he'd say, Joel, I've got more samples. Here's the price. You want to buy them? And I did a bunch of flea markets. That's where I'd sell them. But then I discovered eBay. This is back in July 1999. I started my eBay account, and immediately I was still buying these products for $1. They were now selling for like $10. So I was making way more money. Still had a full-time job, still had a part-time job. But I did this in the evenings and the weekends, mornings, before work, I did some orders. After work, I did the rest. And it was just nonstop grind. And then I realized I need to keep doing this, but I can't have a guy who just keeps running out of stuff. He only sells me 2,000 pieces and he's done for 6 months. So I kept looking, and I found, hours a day of looking online. Who could supply me? And I found a supplier in Mexico to start supplying me. I became his US guy. I didn't know what I was doing. Started selling to stores. He gave me the idea. He said, go to trade shows. And the owner of the brand in Mexico said, go to trade shows in the US and see if you can get stores to buy. And I took a risk, spent $5,000 on a booth. And again, I didn't know what I was doing. I don't even know if I had an order form, or I just wrote these down on a piece of paper. People started ordering a little bit here and there. And I did that every 6 months and started building a brand for that guy and built it up quite a bit. I went from a $2,500 order I placed with him over the phone once for some products. That was my first order, to buying over $1 million a year from him. So wow. He liked me quite a bit, and it went really well until it didn't. I've had so many ups and downs. His son saw my success, and he started contacting my clients and saying, hey, if you want to buy directly from us, you can contact me directly. Worst day, one of the worst days of my life. I went into like a spiral of depression for like a 24-hour period. And then I realized maybe this is a good thing. It forced me to create my own brand. So I created a brand of underwear, and it went really, really well. Hit over $1 million in the first 13 months, and then developed a second brand. And then a third brand. And then I bought an underwear company that had a great website that I could go direct to consumer now. And I ended up buying 14 underwear, swimwear, apparel brands. and it went well, and I grew it. I was netting over $1 million a year running that. I did it for over 20 years. And last year I sold that company. So I'm retired. I don't have to work anymore, but I get to do other things. And that's where I'm at today. I get to do these amazing things.
That's amazing. I definitely wouldn't have expected that entire backstory. That's awesome. So how did you transition from that into kind of what you're doing now to help coach men up? And what was that transition like? I know that you said, you retired and you didn't have to, pursue the career wise. How did you find passion in this?
Yeah. By accident. A lot of things in my life have not been like, I've never written a business plan. I never will. I've never read one, the executive summary in a big packet. I just go, dude, just tell me the business. Give it to me in a minute. And if it makes sense to me, we can talk more about investing and moving forward. I'm a real simple guy. Here's what happened. I read a lot of books, and I've been doing it for years. I run long distance, not so much anymore, but I'd listen to audiobooks. I'd cover 3 books a week, and I was always developing myself. I just want to be the best version of myself. I know where I came from. I know I was lacking some things. I had poor parents, poor neighborhood. I didn't have coaching or mentoring or anything. So I just wanted to level up all the time. And that helped because when I started realizing that I was making money, and similar to your no half cake story, I've got one kind of similar. We bought a house over 10 years ago in the neighborhood we live in now. It's a beautiful neighborhood, safest city in Florida. The New York Yankees shortstop lives a few blocks away, and other athletes live here. Beautiful place. And I went for a bike ride with my kids, my 2 oldest boys back then. We have 4 kids, but the 2 oldest ones and I spent the day riding bike hours. Went to go have lunch, went to go have, a soda or whatever, took them all around, played sports all over. And then I took them to 2 blocks from me within our gated community. There's this beautiful neighborhood. And I know they hadn't seen it yet because we'd only lived here a couple months. And we rode our bikes in there. And my kids, I knew they were going to react this way. They went, oh man, oh my gosh, these houses, these are 10, 12,000 square feet houses, beautiful on the golf course. And my kids said, one of them said, why didn't we buy a house on this street? This is way better. And I let them just get it all out and all out and all out. And while I thought of what I would reply with, and I said, look, boys, have you guys seen any dads today? It's the middle of summer, middle of the day. I haven't seen one dad. I've just seen moms and kids at the park, at the restaurants, everywhere. The dads are out working. You notice I'm not out working? And the only reason I'm not out working and killing myself is because we didn't buy that kind of house. We bought a big, beautiful house. I never dreamt of having a nice house like this growing up poor. But I said, so the trade-off is I wouldn't be here if we would have bought that house because I'd have a mortgage. I bought it cash. And then I'd be stressed out about all the payments and all these things. And both of my kids, they just stayed quiet. And one of them said, you know what? I prefer our house. We wouldn't trade. I wouldn't trade it. And the other one said, yeah, I prefer this house that we have. This is fine. These houses are nice, but I like what we have. That moment changed my life because it set me on this trajectory of questioning, did I do the right thing? Did I buy the big, big house that I could definitely afford, but I'd have a mortgage and I'd be stressed out over it maybe? Or is this better? And that moment made me realize that was better. So I went down to 4 hours a week, still making over $1 million in EBITDA and net profit, and business was great. But I didn't have to kill myself anymore. And then so now I'm answering your question. I just had to set it up with that. By having all this free time, because I started saying, well, I'm not going to work so much anymore. I'm going to delegate and pay someone 6 figures to help me run everything. And I did, and it went really well. That gave me so much free time. And I'm type A, hyperactive, ADHD. I can't sit still. So I started telling people, hey, I got a lot of free time if you know of anything I could help with. And someone said, can you go speak at this university to these entrepreneurs? Absolutely, for free, yeah. And then another university and then another accelerator group and coaching here. It was all free. I was being a mentor everywhere. And that led to one guy saying, I really like the stuff that you share. I want you one-on-one and I'll pay you. And I said, no, there's no cost. And he said, no, I have to pay it. It's your time and I'll value it more. And sure. And so I started coaching this guy, and that led to another one and another one. And I told my wife, I go, maybe I'll be this coach. That's a new thing. I didn't even think I'd ever do that. And it went really well. First year was a good 6-figure income. And I go, there's something here. I got to look into this and see what else I could do. So it wasn't planned. And now I have a book and a series that guys go through with me for 31 days. They're not watching videos. It's with me. We get on Zooms every week. We WhatsApp, communicate every single day for 31 days, and it changes their lives. And again, this was not planned. It was me saying to a bunch of friends one day, you want to get together and do a challenge for 31 days? And like 30 guys said yes. And all right, here's a start date. Let's see what happens. And we did it. There was no cost. It was just a bunch of awesome, successful friends. And we did it and it went well. And when it ended, one of the guys said, okay, we can't let this end. We got to do it again. I go, we'll see one day. They go, no, Joel, we'll pay you. Do it again. Let's do it again in 2 months. All right. He said the magic words. I'm an entrepreneur. Yeah. Not that I need the money, but it's exciting to build a business.
Yeah.
So launch class 002. 001 had no name. It was just a bunch of guys. So today we call that one 001. But so 002 launched, and I got this awesome entrepreneur in there, a bunch of them, 20-something guys. But one of them said, Joel, the day on the challenges where we talked about finances, you helped me find $50,000 that was slipping through my company. Because on the finance day, I talk about, well, you can't let money just keep going to subscriptions and this and that. Analyze your costs, see what softwares you don't need, personal, business, everything. And he found $50,000. He goes, you can't let this end, man. We got to keep this going on forever. I go, well, I'm not doing a class every month. I need some time. And he said, let's just make a maintenance program. It's now called the Brotherhood. 14 guys signed up on day one. We're now over 90 guys. This was about 2 years ago. I bring them authors, speakers, coaches. We do a book a month for those who want to. And then a lot of the time I get the authors to come on. This month, we have Dr. Robert Glover of No More Mr. Nice Guy. I've had Dr. Gary Chapman of the 5 love languages. I mean, just tremendous people. So hardly anybody leaves when it's an invitation only. Top couple guys out of every class of 24 men get invited. Then they got to get voted in and then they sign up. So that's what I am doing now. And it wasn't planned. So the transition, to answer the question more specifically, was very smooth because I wasn't depressed like most guys who sell their companies get depressed and they don't know what they're going to do because their whole identity was tied around that business. Not for me. That business made me money and it got me out of poverty and it made me wealthy. Okay, what else can I do with my time? How can I give back? And it naturally turned into another business. And that's how I got to where I am today.
I love that. I'm noticing a commonality here between your underwear business and now this coaching venture. They weren't planned, right? So you didn't necessarily go out and say, hey, I'm going to look for a garage sale and look for underwear to sell and go, right, create this company. It's sort of just, you were present in the moment, looking for opportunities to how to elevate yourself, how to serve and how to show up and keep getting better. And you capitalized on those opportunities and kind of looked to see how far you could go. Do you think that has been a helpful mentality for you rather than trying to sort of force a business and hustle and grind your way to, hey, I'm going to force this thing to happen? Do you think that sort of let's just be authentic and see how it goes mentality has helped?
Yeah, absolutely. Only because I wouldn't know any different because that's just how I function. But I have seen a lot of people want to force something on the market. I think free markets are beautiful. They tell us what we need to do to bring value to people. I can't, if I like to sell pink telephone covers and nobody wants to buy pink telephone cover, what am I doing pushing that? Offer the pink telephone cover, but offer black, blue, purple, yellow, green, offer all the colors and see who decides what. Don't try to think that you know it all. I don't know it all. I know nothing. I like to throw things out there and see what people like. So some things I tried, I thought were brilliant ideas. I lost a lot of money. And I have a business a couple times where I've lost over $500,000 on a venture. And again, it was me trying to push something that it wasn't there. I like to start small and test and fail quickly and realize, okay, I lost a couple $1,000. It wasn't worth it. I can't keep pushing them. So I'm not going to beat a dead horse. It's not that I'm a quitter, but I also don't want to just keep losing. So I like to try things out. Now, in the apparel business, underwear, swimwear, athletic, I did not have a passion for that. I had a passion for building a business and getting out of poverty. That's it when I was young. And from there on, the rest of it has been, let's make money. Let's get better to see how far we can take this thing. But I did not have a passion. But I'll tell you this, for me, once money is not an issue, then the passion for me, maybe I did it backwards, possibly, I don't know. But the passion has come now into what I love to do because there's no pressure on me. If someone is not, so I coach some guys one-on-one, and if they're not a good fit, and I don't think I can help them succeed, I'm the first to tell them, look, man, I don't think I'm the guy for you. I can't do that if I need money. I have to lie to them, right? If I'm a real estate agent and I'm struggling and someone says, I want to sell my house, is this a good time to sell? Absolutely. Great time to sell. Another guy comes by and says, hey, I'm thinking of selling my house. Is this a good time? Yeah, you got to sell, man. The market's going to crash. You can't be authentic and you can't be honest if you're in need, right? Because you have to survive. And I guess I don't blame them. Maybe I was the same way. But now I get to just be myself and be honest and say, yeah, I don't need your money. I'm not the right guy for you. So yeah, that's my current approach and my current status in life.
Yeah, I think that gives you a lot of freedom to show up authentically and to really serve people at a much more natural level, which I think really does benefit everybody. It benefits you, it benefits them, because there are definitely some people who I'm sure are insistent upon, hey, I want you to coach me, and even though you know it's a wrong fit, and if you were to take them on, it would just be leading them astray, or that just there would be too much tension where it wouldn't work out, and it would cause them more harm than good. And that's something that's hard for people to see, right? They feel like, hey, am I not worth it? Am I broken, or is it just a mismatch? Right?
Yeah.
It's sort of hard for people to understand that not every relationship works out that way.
Yeah. And by the way,
sort of
in a personal relationship, you can't fight the fact that, look, I've consulted a lot of guys dating women, excuse me. And I tell them that for me, dating was this process of looking for red flags. I want to make sure this is the right person. I've been married for over 22 years. We are absolute best friends. I'm as excited as I was 22 years ago when she gets home. She's out on a 20-mile run right now. But when she gets home, I'm going to be just as excited to see her as when we were dating. So I think we've done a good job. She says she's as excited for me as well. But how did we get to that? We're making sure along the way, and we put ourselves through a grinder on purpose to ask a ton of difficult questions. We got this book when we were dating, like what happens if we have a child that's diagnosed with this? What happens if we have an elderly parent and they need to live with us potentially? We went through all the difficult questions. So it's just the same. I want to be in a relationship with somebody who wants to be with me 100%. We look for those red flags. Is this the right person to be with? We asked all the tough questions. So I think in personal relationships, same thing. It's just like the free market. You got to make sure there's a fit. You got to make sure you bring value to each other, and it's the right person for you.
Yeah, I love that. Well, that's awesome and refreshing to hear, because there's way too many people who have lackluster relationships out of convenience. Especially once you cross over, let's say the 10-year mark, and it's just, you've got some kids, and it's now, hey, it's too much of a pain in the neck to get divorced, so we just kind of become roommates. We live together, and it is what it is. We don't really have a loving relationship, which I find really hurts each other, obviously, but also hurts the kids. Like, how important do you think it is for your kids to see you acting as a husband, and how do you treat your wife, and how you guys have a proper relationship into how they are going to look for a relationship as they get older?
Yeah, man, that's huge. And that's a lot of the stuff that we talk about in the 31 days challenge that I do there. We hit all of that. So we got to date our wife the way we did and try to impress her the way we did when we were young. So what does that mean? We take care of ourselves. We exercise. We eat well. You got to show up. You got to be doing push-ups every day. All these physical challenges we do along the way to look good. And I've had guys start the challenge with lackluster relationships with their wife or girlfriend. And then toward the end, the wife says, you're looking stronger. Your posture looks better. Push-ups, man. That's a secret. So, so absolutely. I got 4 kids, 19. He's a U.S. soldier, down to 11. I got boys and 1 girl, 3 boys, 1 girl. I date my daughter. I date my sons. We go out on a regular basis. I got a rotation schedule. So as possible, it's all on the calendar, with my calendar, my wife's calendar, and the kids. They know it. We have a date coming up on this date, and we spend 3-4 hours together without technology. We go to dinner. We go to the park. We do something fun. We do whatever they want to do. Go hit golf balls, whatever they're into. Go shoot guns, whatever they want. That allows them to see how an adult male treats their kids. They do. My wife got caught on to this about a year after I started it years ago. So she does the same thing. So now they get to see what a woman acts like in public and all these things. There's a lot of communication going on. We also go out with our kids a lot together. So my kids know, they know nothing else than to open the door for the lady. They know nothing else than to pull out her chair. They know nothing else than to sit and watch the front door in case a bad guy walks in so you can react and prevent anything bad. And my daughter, knows when we go on those dates, all these things. She knows that I occasionally, not every time, I don't want to spoil her, but I'll occasionally buy her flowers. I take her to the restaurant she wants. You know, I again, same thing as my wife. I open the door for her. I talk to her about her life. I take interest in her life. I got that from a guy who came to speak to us. It was our book of the month, family board. I can't remember if it's family board meeting or family boardroom. I think it's family board meeting. Jim Shields, phenomenal author. And he developed this system of take your kids out on dates. And he talks about how his son had all these problems in school and the school was contacting him. You know, he's off the charts. He's misbehaving. And then he adopted this. He started taking his sons out on dates and letting them do what they want to do and be together. The behavior switched instantly because he gave them attention. So a lot of time we aren't giving people attention. And another thing that I do is I have rules for living. And one of the rules is that I will not be looking at a phone when I'm talking to somebody at all. Now, if I'm working on something, I'm sending an email and one of my kids comes in to talk to me, I'll say, hey, give me 15 seconds. And I finish and I send it. And now I'm all yours. And that phone is not in my hand. That phone is not on the table. That phone is hidden because you're all that matters. I want to hear what you have to say to me. And if we do this with people, our kids and our spouses especially, we're going to set this really good precedent of this is how you treat people. This is how you respect each other. This is how you give full attention to someone. None of these things came naturally. I used to be a bad listener as a kid. I got in trouble all the time in school. Now I am a very good listener. I get to put things down. I'll look at you in the eyes, not in a creepy way. I'll blink occasionally. I won't be so weird. And I want to hear what people have to say. That I learned from How to Win Friends and Influence People when I was in my 20s. Read that book by Dale Carnegie, life changer. So just a little, I have a lot of book recommendations because I've read about 1,000 books. So I can't think of a story or an example without a book reference.
That's good though. I find that such a, I don't even want to call it a life hack because it seems a little too cliche, but reading books is something that is such a good boost, especially like if you're going to do audiobooks where you can put down 3-4 books a week pretty easily if you are listening to it while you're driving, while you're walking, while you're doing whatever else. The amount of information and ability to level up from books that people just don't take advantage of is mind-boggling to me. If you had to recommend 3 books, and this is going to be a hard question, I'm sure.
Nope, I got them already.
No? All right. I'm intrigued.
All right, so someone who coaches me personally, he's a former Navy SEAL commander, Jocko Willink. He wrote a book. He's written a lot of books. But yeah, Extreme Ownership is such a good book. And the audio is better because him and Leif Babin have great voices, and they especially Leif. He sounds like Batman. He's a great guy. That book is got to read it. Everybody's got to read it and apply it in business and work, in relationships, marriage, everything. So that's one. Let's see what else. The Secret. That book changed my life. I read it in a low point. I was maybe making somewhere between 50 to 75,000 a year. Within a few years, I started making over $1 million, not top line, net profit. And it was due to that book. That book got me thinking so positively, and not ridiculous. Like, yeah, I'm going to walk on this cliff and not fall down. Not like that, and not like, well, a check's going to appear in my mailbox because I wish it. Not at all. All that it did for me, and it changed my life, was tell me to not close my mind out. Just, hey, listen to that person. They're inviting you to coffee. Pretty soon over time, I can't accept every invitation I get, but you'll get good at filtering it out. You can ask the right questions. And now pretty soon you're like, okay, I can feel this thing when I can see that this person's the kind of person I want in my life. Let me accept that invitation to coffee or a phone call. The Secret by Rhonda Burns, phenomenal book. It took me maybe 3 days to read it on paper years ago. There was no Audible back then, and apply it instantly. And it changed my life. And then one that I mentioned earlier is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. As I was reading it in my 20s, my mind was blown. I couldn't believe how amazing this was. And I called my dad and I said, Dad, I'm reading this most amazing book. And when I told him what it was, he said, oh, I read that in the 1960s. I go, wow, this thing's been around since, 30s or something like that. And it's still a top selling book. But look, with all books, with all information, I don't think knowledge is power. I think action is power, but you have to have the knowledge to take good action. And it doesn't have to be perfect action. Nothing in my life is perfect. My marriage is a 9.5. I want to call that one a 10 because I really feel like it is, but we don't want to call anything perfect because we want to keep working at things. So there's no perfect action you're going to take. There's no perfect knowledge you're going to get, but just get knowledge, get educated, and then go try something. So you can read all these books. I know a lot of people read a lot of books, but they don't take action. They're just waiting and waiting and waiting. Take a little action and see what happens. If it's in business, if it's in dating, if it's in improving relationships, whatever it is, go take one small step. One thing I do on a very regular basis is I write handwritten notes. If someone and I have a meaningful moment or a conversation or a lunch or something, I'll write them a nice little handwritten note and put that in the mail. You want to work on relationships? Do that. Go online or go to the pharmacy and buy a box of cards, whether they're thank you cards or blank cards, and write some nice messages and put them in the mail. There, tiny little step will cost you, I don't know, a $25 investment between stamps and envelopes and cards. And you can start making a big impact on relationships. So do that, or go read 25 books on relationships and do nothing about it. Which one do you think is better?
Yeah. It's amazing how people don't connect the knowledge and the action together. Because there are definitely some people who will go out and they'll continue to pursue knowledge, or they'll find themselves being motivation junkies where they need to constantly consume this motivation or inspiration from YouTube videos or whatever else, but then they don't act on it. Or there are people who will just take action without ever actually thinking that they need to level themselves up with knowledge. So from your perspective, when you get these people into your program, what might be the piece of advice, or what might be the conversation you have to get someone to understand, hey, it's important to go out and get the knowledge and then to go actually apply it?
Yeah. So the shirt that I'm wearing, and you can't see this, and if anybody's watching on camera, I'll show you, it's discipline over motivation. I'm not a rah coach. I'm not there to pump people up and get them all excited, and they leave our time together, our phone call, our Zoom, and then it crashes. I've seen that. I've been to these rah events. I went to one big name, 8,000 people in the room, and I saw people stepping up to a chair, standing on a chair and yelling and screaming and singing and dancing. And then in a little break, I started asking everyone around me, so what's your story? And this guy told me, well, I've tried to commit my suicide 8 times in the last couple of years. Oh, wow. And the other one weighed 400 pounds and they can't lose the weight. They lose it every time a little bit when they're in this thing. And 2 weeks later, they get it all back. And the other one, and one after the other, and the other person's been divorced 5 times, all these problems. And they're there for this raw motivation. For me, that personally, that doesn't work. It's to talk about discipline and to do the thing that you said you were going to do, whether you want to or not. I never want to get into my cold plunge that I have in my yard, but I get in there and I do it. Even if I'm only in there for 30 seconds or a minute, just breaking through that I don't want to be here and getting in there and doing it sets me up for success for the rest of the day. It's the hardest thing I do. I think, jiu-jitsu is pretty rough when you get a big guy crushing your soul. That's pretty rough too. But it's to take these little steps. And if I say I want to lose weight, then I stop buying the processed food and the carbohydrates and the chemicals, and I stop buying that stuff. And what I think helps is to have an accountability partner. For someone who can afford a coach, go for it. It could be a life changer if they're the right fit for you. Otherwise, you got to get a friend who's in it with you, and not a friend that is going to say, it's okay, you're doing great, give yourself grace. Maybe, but what I have found that works is like what we do. We perform 24 guys in a group and we give them accountability partners, groups of 3, 8 groups of 3 guys. In those 31 days, we're all checking in with the 24, but we also have that tight group of 3 to check in. Hey, did you do your push-ups? Yep. Did you write that letter? Yep. Then you're done for today's challenges. Did you do your next day? Did you do your air squats? And did you, I don't know, whatever the challenge is that day, did you write down the thing you most fear? whatever the challenge is. Yeah or no, I didn't do it. Hey, man, what are you waiting for? It's almost midnight. You got to get it done. And just that little action. And you say, well, I'm going to sit down and write a thing for 5 minutes. What's that going to change? Do it. It's these tiny little actions. I love micro victories. And I think what people fall victim to is that they get in a series of micro defeats. And, I had that cigarette. Well, I may as well just have that cake. And now that I had the cake, maybe I should just drink that Diet Coke. Stop the micro defeats. Start having these micro wins. Throw away all that Diet Coke. Put a big sign on your mirror that says, I don't drink Coke. I don't drink soda. Start talking to people. Not, I'm trying to cut out bread. No, that's not what you say. You say, I don't eat bread. The other day, my wife said that. A lady came over at the restaurant and said, would you guys like bread? And I and my wife both spoke at the same time. I go, I don't eat bread. We don't eat bread. And she goes, we're trying not to eat bread. And my wife's amazing. She runs her own women's program and cancer survivor, mother of 4, registered nurse, all these amazing things. And and I had to point it out to her. By the way, many times it's her pointing it out to me to say and do the right thing. But I said, don't say we're trying. We just don't eat it. When's the last time you ate bread? We don't eat it. We say that. She's like, you're absolutely right. That's what we got to say. And so there's a example. I have the best accountability partner. She's an accountability queen. And I think she's got a decent one in me. So growing and leveling up together in a relationship, in all your relationships, I think is great. And that will require sometimes getting rid of some people in your life. You're saying yes to new, great people. You might have to say no to some that bring you down.
Yeah, I love that you touched on the importance of language. Because, I believe the same thing, and we do it in our family as well. We don't use the word try. We'll replace it with train. Hey, I'm training to do X, Y, and Z, right? And we'll constantly check each other. And there's a bunch of different language choices that we make intentionally because the words that you speak create your reality, right? In a lot of cases, people don't realize that they're willy-nilly with their words and they're also willy-nilly with their results.
Absolutely.
I want to go back to what you said before because, we were talking a little bit about Jocko. And, what you were just talking about there reminded me of his sound clip, if you will, of good, right? Hey, it didn't work out. Good. Right. How much of that mentality do you think is important to instill?
Yeah. We reframe negative things that happen in our life this way, and I think it's impactful. So I might have the note here because I just recorded a video yesterday. Yes, I do. It's funny that you say that because I recorded a video on reframing. So I grew up very poor. I could have 1,000 excuses of why that's bad. And I can't do that. I haven't done that. I didn't because I was poor, because I didn't have guidance, because I grew up in a ghetto, because that's the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I am the most gratitude-filled, grateful person in the world because I don't live in poverty anymore. And I have a reference point, and that has been fantastic to me. So rather than me thinking about it as an excuse and a crutch, and because poor me, I think we feel too sorry for ourselves. So I get to be happy that I grew up in poverty. It's giving me tremendous gratitude. Hard to be depressed and grateful at the same time, right? So for me, that's one of the things I wrote. I lost a girlfriend who broke up with me because I deserved it 20-something years ago. And that knocked me down. It made me so sad. I spiraled into a little depression. And later I thought about it and I go, good thing that happened. I was being a jerk and I deserved it. And that taught me a lot of lessons. And oh, by the way, I got to meet my wife. And that wouldn't have happened had I not gone through that struggle. And I had to hit that low. I had to suffer to change. Because if it would have been a smooth transition, I wouldn't have learned any lessons. I've learned a lot from failure. I've not learned a lot from success, and I failed a lot. Last one. It's so funny because you asked that question and these are fresh. I got on Amazon, my business, as it was growing and selling millions of dollars. We decided to open up an Amazon account years ago. And it was going very well. It was going to net over 300,000 for the year, just starting out, selling our own brands, which we thought, who's going to know about them on Amazon? They found us, they bought. And then we got kicked off of Amazon, like happens to a lot of sellers. Even though these were our brands, we had all the rights and everything, we got kicked off. And at the time I researched and it said all these bans are permanent. Oh my God, what's going to happen? We were on this high. We were doing so well. We're going to sell millions of dollars eventually. And we got kicked out. Well, that forced me to go in a different direction and start getting creative in my business. And we made a closeout section to our business that would never have happened. And that was driving in millions of dollars. Thanks to getting kicked off Amazon. A year later, Amazon contacted us and said, we're going to let you back in. You just have to make sure you meet these standards. And we maintained it up until the day we sold the company. So that could have been the worst moment of my life because I lost so much money and all these bad things. Well, that's how I see things now going forward. I have so many of these examples in my life as I stop, detach from the emotion and see what's going on, that now when something bad happens, I go, okay, let's see what good is going to come out of this. In fact, when things are going too well, I want a little shakeup in my life. I want something to hit me a little bit bad because I know what comes from that defeat. So imagine going forward with the positive attitude of, hey, if something bad happens, I'm going to turn it around to something positive. I think that's a good way to live, and that's been working for me for years now.
Yeah, and I think it's great because it builds up this expectation of, hey, when this bad thing happens, you pretty quickly are able to switch from feeling bad about it to being excited for what good is going to come from that. And I believe that mentality shift, now when you practice gratitude, that can change your whole life, right? When you start understanding that, hey, this bad thing that happened to me, quote unquote bad thing, is going to be used for good. I'm just not necessarily sure how yet. It's almost exciting, right? Like you said, you almost look forward to these things happening because it's almost like in a movie when there's like a turn in the plot and all of a sudden, right, you're the main character and you're excited for what's going to happen next, but you get to live that every day. And you have this trust in yourself, your abilities, because you've done the work, you've read the knowledge, you're a man of action, and you have that brotherhood, right? So I'm curious, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but how important do you think it is to have that brotherhood around you of people who are going to be that level of good friend to you? Reason why I ask, a lot of people look at having a good friend as someone who's going to love and support them. But a lot of times that love and support looks like, I don't want to hurt your feelings. I don't want to tell you this because I want you to feel happy. When you really love somebody, you want to tell them the thing that, hey, maybe it's going to be a bit of a slap in the face. Maybe it's going to be a little bit of a rude awakening. But if you really love them, you're going to tell them the truth because you want them to be their best self. So surrounding yourself with that type of person, obviously it's not always easy to find those people. But how crucial for success do you believe that is?
I always say that I'm not in this role in my life today to become or to gain more friends. It happens. I keep adding friends that are like brothers to me, but that's not my purpose. I'm not out here trying to make friends. I have a lot of friends. I'm here to change lives. And sadly, or happily, whatever you want to see it, it requires a little bit of a punch in the gut sometimes. Give you some examples. I was on a phone with a U.S. military veteran yesterday. He's going through some PTSD stuff. He's about to lose his house. He has a 7-month-old at home and a wife, and he's made some very bad financial decisions. And I don't mean he risked it on Bitcoin or some stocks. Not at all. He's blown his money. He goes and gets a $5-6 coffee every single day, and he's about to lose his house. I can go buy coffee shops and the block of businesses at that coffee shop. I'm rarely going and spending $5-6 on a coffee. I have coffee at home, right? So I had to tell him all these things. And beyond that, I mean, I asked him, what channels do you have? I have HBO and this. And I go, I don't even have cable. Because what am I going to do? Sit in a couch and be the fan to some hero on television? Or I'm going to get out there, go lift weights, train jujitsu, run, date my wife, date my kids. What are you doing? Where do you want to finish? Where's that cup of coffee? There's this one example. Where's that cup of coffee, a $5-6 coffee, going to do for you when you're living under a bridge, man, with your baby? And he needed to hear all these things. And at the end of the conversation, there was a change happening. And now this is a guy who's not part of my ecosphere. It's a friend of someone in the Brotherhood. So I gave him that phone call. And I got some feedback afterwards that it was life-changing for him. We had a 25-minute phone call. And then he's going to take action. That's a lot better, in my opinion, than a friend who says, you're going to be okay, man. Just enjoy life. You deserve it. He does not deserve that cup of coffee. His baby deserves a roof over the head, and he does not deserve that brand new car. I don't buy new cars. I buy 2-year-old cars that are under warranty, and they're fine, and they're perfect. They're very good, and the rest of the money gets invested. But this guy, instead of investing it even on his own roof, he's blowing it on stupidity. So yes, I have a lot of uncomfortable conversations with people. In fact, it's one of the challenges in the 31 days. It's today you're going to have an uncomfortable conversation, and you know what it is, and you know who it needs to be with. And if you don't know, talk to your accountability partners. We're going to figure out what it is for you. But everybody has to have a difficult conversation, which usually people stress out more about it before it happens. For years, they haven't had it. So they're just building it up. And when they have it, they go, what a relief. I got this off my chest. I feel better. Now we're going to work on it. So yes. The other thing is, yeah, guys need someone, out there to be able to rely on. And if you've got a tribe of guys that are all in it together to keep improving and they want to read the next book. They want to be in on the next Zoom call. They want to have that person to check in with them regularly. They want to have a team of 4 guys of accountability every 6 months and rotate it throughout the other guy. This stuff's amazing. And by the way, I didn't grow up this way. I didn't even do this stuff 10 years ago. I was a lone wolf. And I thought, I don't need anybody. I'm the most disciplined person I know personally. I'll get after it every single day. I'm going to do everything I need to do to keep being the best person. And then I realized, oh, there is a lot of power in being able to share something with somebody, say something, get their feedback. And that's when I really started growing. That was about 10 years ago. And so now I'm privileged that I get to be that, put together the organization that enables people, guys, to come in and do that. Like I said, we run a women's program separately, but I focus on the guys, and it's very powerful. And I see it every day. The guys are telling me this is changing their life.
Yeah, I love that. It's so important, I think, for people to have that incentive to have uncomfortable conversations. And I really love that you have that as part of your challenge because, and I'm sure you'll back this up, a lot of times we look at this thing in front of us that we avoid because it's uncomfortable, and that could be a conversation, it could be a thing you need to do for yourself, could be whatever it is. But there are a lot of things that we put in front of ourselves that we know is going to lead to breakthrough, but we avoid it because it's uncomfortable. And I can't tell you how many times going through something that's uncomfortable, yes, causes pain, but the freedom that comes from the other side of that is 1,000 times better than any of the pain that you went through. But again, it's one of those things where, you start to go through it a couple times and you learn that, right? You learn, hey, this uncomfortable thing, yes, it's going to suck for right now, like your ice bath. Yes, it's going to suck for right now, but the discipline, the benefits that come out of that are tenfold. How do you encourage someone to start that practice of having those uncomfortable conversations when all they want to do is run from it?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to normalize the discomfort, and ice baths, sauna, running, or long bike ride, rowing a lot. Just putting yourself through something that's uncomfortable physically, I think carries over because you go, wow, I just went through all that and I did it. I survived. I impressed myself. I set a new PR. I wonder if maybe I could have that talk with my wife. I wonder if I could talk to my boss or my employee now about this thing. I haven't had anybody yet tell me it was a mistake. And I've had 500 guys in the last 2 years go through this, and they've told me, I'm so glad I had that conversation. It really set things in the right direction. I think what we need to do first is understand that our brain is a big, fat liar. Our brain wants to keep us safe and alive, and it wants to keep us from burning any energy because it wants us to survive. But what it doesn't know is, don't worry, I don't have to go hunt my animals every day now. I don't have to, I got a refrigerator, I got a freezer, we're fine. But we're built for 10,000 years ago. So we want to just be kept safe. The brain doesn't know the difference. And a hard conversation is not going to kill us, but the brain thinks it might because it's fear. And so we got to understand that we have this brain that's just this physical thing that sends us these signals that are fake. They're fake in today's society. You're not going to die because of this. Now, go fight the saber-toothed tiger is very dangerous. So the brain says, I don't think you want to do that. Go back in the cave, eat a squirrel, keep it safe. But I think what happens is we have this conversation we have to have, and we really believe, our brain believes that it's a saber-toothed tiger. It's not that bad. Go have the conversation. If it leads into a rough situation, you'll deal with it, but it's probably going to be better. So don't believe the brain. Your mind is a lot stronger, and it requires you to get over the little things. So if you're scared of getting in the shower for 30 seconds with freezing water, do that. Do that for 10 seconds. Set a timer and get in there in freezing water for 10 seconds. See if you're tough enough to do that. And once you get past those 10 seconds, all right, good job. Congrats. You don't have to do any more. But you just notched up another micro win for yourself, and keep looking for those micro victories. And pretty soon you're going to impress yourself. I like to journal. I was journaling last night and I went back to a entry from 2017 and I realized, like, wow, I'm a different person. And so if you want to get those victories, start writing them down. And that way you could look back and say, wow, I've really come a long way from where I was.
Yeah. And it's cool to go back and look too at the things that you may have been stressing over and either realize they actually worked out in your favor or they weren't that big a deal in the end. Just to go back and look at what was my life like 5, 6 years ago, and then see, hey, look at all the blessings I have in my life. Because I think that's another thing too. 5, 6 years ago, we prayed for X, Y, and Z to happen in our life. It was the biggest deal. And we said, hey, when this happens, I'll be happy. Right. And there are now times where we forget about it. We've got all these blessings around us that we just now are common that we don't appreciate. So yeah, I fully endorse journaling because I think there's so much benefit that comes from looking back and realizing how far you've come.
Well, I'm glad you said that. So people do vision boards, and I think they're great. I love them. My wife and I have done it. A lot of my coaching clients have done it, where they, put together all the things they'd like in their future. And a lot of times it just happens because it's in your brain. Now you start acting toward that thing. Phenomenal. Well, I like to go, I'm different. I know I'm wired differently. I think differently. I like to have vision boards. That's great. But I also like to have a negative picture of the past to remind me where I am today. So if anybody's listening to this and you can watch it on video, what you see behind me is the shirt that I had on the boat when I came here leaving communist Cuba, and that 4 hours of storm, 12 hours of a boat ride. It sucked. I have on my screen a picture very similar to the boat I came here on. I have an actual picture of my house that I lived in. And if you saw it, it's bad. It was really poor, really bad. And those are great reminders for me because they make me remember, man, how could I complain about anything? My life is amazing. When I had my business in my warehouse, I had a massive American flag hanging from the rafters. And some clients were visiting me from Virginia, and they go, why do you have such a big American flag up there? And I go, oh, man, you guys don't know. You guys are like 10 generations in this country. You have no clue what life is like, how bad it is outside of here, especially where I come from in communism. So I love knowing that my past was bad so that I could enjoy every single day. And you said it. I mean, when you being grateful is such a superpower. Find the things to be grateful about. Stop chasing without stopping and saying, where was I? Like you said, 4, 5, 6 years ago, this would have been my dream problem. But because I forget that, I'm just driven. Now I'm stressed out and depressed and anxiety and all these problems. So I recommend reminding yourself how bad it was and how these are the problems you wish you had years ago.
Yeah, I love that. And I laughed a little bit because, right here is a picture that I keep as the wallpaper of my phone is that half-eaten birthday cake. So literally every time I pick up my phone, I see that picture and remember, I don't want to go back to that. And I think one of the fun little practices I do sometimes, let's be real, sometimes you're still just not feeling it. We are human, right? No matter how disciplined we are, there's going to be times when you just don't feel it. One of the practices I like to do is to just stop for a second, close my eyes, and imagine the opportunity has passed. And I'm wishing so hard for an opportunity to go back and do something different. And then open your eyes and realize you're in that opportunity. Right? So just to realize, hey, right now I have an opportunity to do something before the moment has passed. Let me not waste it. Let me take this chance now before I wake up tomorrow with regret because I slacked off or I, putzed around on TikTok when I could have been doing something to better my life.
Yeah.
And I think that little frame of mind where you can say, hey, this is the opportunity that I'm going to regret I didn't take tomorrow, I think it's so powerful. So I love that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, regret sucks. And doing hard work 10 years ago, you don't remember that. It's gone. But the results are here. If you're smart and you make something with it and you invest it and it grows, you go, I'm so glad I struggled. Look, when I was 19 to 22, I worked in this radio station. And I worked a lot. In fact, my record for 1 week from a Sunday to a Saturday, just that 1 7-day period, was 109 hours. I was doing 24-hour shifts, go home for 4, come back for 18, added up to 109 in 7 days. I don't remember how much that sucked. And my average was like 70 hours a week. I worked a lot all that time to save up. I made very little money, but I saved up and bought my first house. So at 22 years old, I had $32,000 in the bank. This is in the 90s. That's a good amount of money. Up until then, I was living at home paying $400 a month in rent to my parents, which was a lot of money. But I worked really, really hard to save up that money. And guess what happened? I bought that house. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, middle-class neighborhood, got out of the ghetto I grew up in. And that improved my life because I got to live in a better place, better neighbors, better quality. And I rented out the 2 bedrooms because I was a single guy, 22 years old. That paid my mortgage. 12 months later, I bought my second house. 12 months later, my third house. And 15 months later, I bought my fourth one. I was like 25 years old. I had 4 properties. The other day I was in the ghetto and I was poor, but I put in this really hard work up front, which today I don't remember it. But the the benefits of having made that effort today have changed my life. It put me on a completely different trajectory. So yeah, put in the hard work, even when you don't want to. The days I do not want to go to jujitsu, the days I don't want to do that extra exercise, I do it. I forget about the suffering and it's the best workout I've ever had. So I like those little types. That's my kind of motivation, is motivation through discipline.
Yeah. I laugh a little bit because I was literally just going to ask you if you find that those things, the day that you don't want to work out, are the best workouts you have, or the conversation you don't want to have winds up being one of the better conversations, right? When you feel like, man, maybe I'll just cancel this meeting and I'll make up an excuse, but you have the conversation anyway, and it winds up being life altering, right? That's another thing I think that if we start to look back on, we build up that good mentality. Hey, I don't want to do this. Good. Let's go do it, because I know good things are going to come from it.
Yeah.
Man, I love that. So I know we're sort of out of time, and I want to respect your time this morning. Any final words, or where can people follow up with you? I know that you have your program. How can people learn more about that, and where do we go from here?
Sure. Love to connect with anybody who wants to look into the program that we do. The website is 31dailychallenges.com. That's number 3, the number 1, dailychallenges.com. I set a coupon code for anybody who is interested. It's no half cakes. If you use that coupon code, it knocks off the book. It makes the book free. The program is $199 for 31 days. I'm in there. It's not videos. It's me with a bunch of other folks. And it is $199 plus a $20 book. But if you use the coupon code no half cakes, the book's free. And there's classes roughly every 6 weeks we start up. The women's classes are with my wife, Jessica Gandara. The coupon code will work for that as well. Love to have folks in there. We build really special relationships just in those 31 days. And the folks who are just over the top amazing that we don't want to let slip out of our life, both in the Brotherhood and the sisterhood that we have, we invite those folks to continue with us. And again, we formed this beautiful group of people, annual retreats, trips. We're going to Bolivia in a couple months to climb a 20,000-foot mountain with 12 of the guys, couples retreat in Park City, Utah this year, a men's retreat in Miami, a women's one in Fort Lauderdale. So we do all these amazing things together. We'd love to connect. I'm on Instagram, Joel Gandara. And like I said, 31dailychallenges.com. I'd love to have your folks join us.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. And huge honor to you for doing what you do, because it makes a big difference. And I personally appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim. Keep it up, man. You're doing a great job.